SGI News Agency is here in Baku, Azerbaijan, and we are having a very profound, a key element, the head of the African Union Delegation, Mr. Um, Harsen Nyambi. Mr. Harsen Nyambi, we would like to know there have been concerns by Africa heads of state earlier, and they were talking about uh, that the money which the carbon credit which would have been given to Africa is not enough, especially that Africa is having so many forests like in Congo. What is your say as African Union about that?
Well, our leaders or our heads of states and government are correct. If you look at the price of carbon in Africa, it's way too low to encourage actually anybody to invest or to be able to trade. And it's for that reason that as the African Union, we have actually developed an action plan for carbon markets, which will serve as a guide to member states on how they can be able to engage in carbon markets in order to get better prices, in order to put in place the right legislation, as well as to build the capacity for them to reap the benefits out of carbon markets.
Okay, famine is also being one of the issues being discussed at G20, and it has affected so many countries in Africa, South Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and so many countries. What is African Union doing about that?
Well, famine in Africa is a result of our dependence on rain-fed agriculture. And of late, we have experienced changes in, should I say, in climate, but also the climate variability is also impacting our agriculture. And most of our agriculture is actually in the hands of small-scale farmers who do not have the means, for example, if there's no rain or sufficient rain that year, to be able to switch to irrigation. So that's actually a major problem for the continent. But of course, there are programs in Africa, such as CADIP, which is coming to an end. And now we are working actually to come up with a successor program, which will be called post-Kampala, should I say, declaration. And His Excellency, the President of Uganda, is willing to host that summit. There will be a summit to that effect early next year. And that program actually will be looking at boosting agricultural productivity as well as production, and at the same time improving trade on the continent. Because there are countries in Africa, for example, if you look at countries like Cameroon, they produce a lot of food. And yet you have got countries like currently in Southern Africa where they've had the worst drought in 40 years. And as such, those countries could benefit from the other countries in Africa which are also producing enough, or which have abundant food. But unfortunately, there are also trade barriers, and it's why we have also established the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to be able to facilitate that trade. So basically, we need a multifaceted approach to be able to make sure that we feed our own people.
Africa's response to disasters like floods has been one of worrying issues on a global level. We've just witnessed Spain being affected and struggling to respond. How ready is Africa in terms of responding to floods? The other day, Nairobi was hit by floods, and so many other countries. Are we ready?
Yes, we are ready, but what we are saying is that we can no longer do business as usual. We can no longer be reactive, wait for the flood to strike before we start running around to deal with the casualties. It's for that reason that our leaders, in their wisdom, established the multi-hazard early warning system and early action, so that countries can actually be alerted if there's a cyclone that is coming or there's going to be flood, so they get notice already way in advance. And once they get that notice, normally we meet with them to have those preparatory meetings so that they are better prepared, to be able to protect the population from the impact of such disasters. But also, we are working on the establishment of the Africa Humanitarian Agency, which is going to be hosted by the Republic of Uganda. But we are also, in addition to that, working on the Civil Protection Unit which is going to be mobilizing resources that are needed to be able to respond to some of these disasters. And there again, we are working with the government of the People's Republic of Algeria and all other member states.
Finally, Your Excellency, in this COP29, the Secretary General is looking at tripling the funds that are needed, about 40 billion US dollar by 2025. What is the portion of Africa from the funds?
I'm not sure which specific fund you are talking about.
The climate financing.
Yes, in terms of climate finance, for us as a continent, our figures have been very clear. And we are looking at about 1.3 trillion for developing countries. And out of that, if I'm not mistaken, Africa is less than 50 million per year, 50 billion per year, that we are looking at. Of course, figures are different depending on which source you look at, but the point is that we need at least more resources, which are informed by studies to be able to support our people to be able to adapt to the impact of climate change. And if you look at 2021 to 2022, Africa only received about 5%, of the global funds that are related to adaptation.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.